And we're back, and we're moving into our final conversation for today. I am joined by Shihan Raymond Kelly of House of Shotokan in Belize City. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
And thank you for being here.
No, it's an honor and a privilege to be here, and thanks to Channel 5 for this opportunity.
Well, Shihan, we talked to you about quite a number of issues. We talk about martial arts, kickboxing, self-defense classes, self-defense tips. And now you're venturing into a new area of safety, and that's about school safety. Tell me how this idea came about.
Well, I have to accredit it to Dr. Alicia Seguro at Nazarene High School, who's the principal there. Within the school plan, I believe, for ministry, the school has to have an emergency safety activation plan. And I believe that goes for every institution within the country pertaining to education. In conversing with her, she shared with me, you know what, it would be great to put together a safety plan pertaining to an intruder attack or an intruder on the school premises. Subsequently, sitting down with her, she gave me the educational perspective as far as rules of engagement, and I said, you know what, let's go ahead and put together a plan. Plan was put together, and I tapped into different resources within my skills, the martial art, the law enforcement, the tactical training, and I came up with an intruder training for the school. And we sat down, I showed her the paperwork, and we actually had within the teachers' meeting, we went over this information, training the teachers what to do in an actual intruder coming into the school.
Now, it's interesting because we were talking before the break, and I heard in your news item last night that this is also spurred from a real life scenario where someone unauthorized was on the school compound. And I think sometimes we take things lightly. You know, if someone gets onto the compound, what normally happens, what the threats could be. Is that a part of the conversation that you had with the school about that safety aspect?
That is correct, because let's look at the definition of an intruder. Intruder is someone who is not invited, who is not authorized to be on the premises. We call it trespass. But the individual comes with a criminal intent. In other words, their being there is for a specific reason and purpose. Last week, or week before last, when the intruder came on Nazarene campus, the individual came on, security approached the individual, he was spotted by security, and the alarm went out. Subsequently, the individual was approached by security, and the person just cursed the warden out and walked into a classroom. Actually sat down with the student. The teacher knew what to do. So he evacuated the student out of the classroom immediately. And subsequently, security came into contact with the individual, and he subsequently got off the campus.
So there are multiple scenarios I can think of in my mind, because I think while school compounds should be secure, they have fences and whatnot, we've seen in the past, and if I just use recent ones, we've had armed persons running past the primary school right near here.
That's correct.
We've had an armed person run into schools in the middle of a school day trying to escape.
That's correct.
And the risks associated there. I'm not sure what schools have in place in terms of a plan, but if we look at what happens, especially in the United States, where they have a major issue with school shootings, there are very precise plans as to how to react. Do you think that we are perhaps being a bit lax in making the type of preparations within schools for these type of eventualities?
I'm not going to use the word lax. I'm going to be real with you. If something was to happen, an intruder goes on any school campus right now, whether it be armed, unarmed, I would hate to think of the end result. And it's because within the planning system, has you looked at intruder, armed in this case, what are the plans that are there within the educational system? But go outside the educational system. Look at the community, the banking industry, a business. I'm going to get closer. This business right here, or the station right here. What is the plan that is in place to address intruders with a criminal intent to do bodily harm. We talked about the school. Ministry, I'm very sure, have a plan in place. I'm very sure because I viewed it. However, are those plans being practiced?
Yeah.
Are those plans being simulated at the various schools?
Yeah.
Or we call it fire drill. Are those drills being done?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, not just are they being done, are they being assessed? How can we make this better?
Yeah.
So
the teachers and students know it.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So that's why I share with you is that I am proud that the principal allowed me to go in there, evaluate, and put a pilot program within the school. Yeah. And subsequently, I'm going to say, you know, as I said yesterday, there's a 9 that was graded at the school relative to an unarmed intruder going there and the reaction and the protocol that was done at that school. Now, can you go to other schools and say that will happen? Yeah. Well, as I said, I cannot speak on that. I can only speak on Nazarene because I know what's at Nazarene, but I would imagine and think out of the box other schools around the country. I mean, schools way out in the bush.
What's you know, what type of preparation does it take? Because if I reflect on my high school days, we did fire drills. You know, the alarm goes off, you file, you get into a line, and you go out of the compound into a safe space. But you're right. I don't know, given the current context of how we're living, whether schools are preparing and conducting drills in the event that someone comes with bad intentions into the compound. And that's what you attempted to do at Nazarene, and you said you had your first drill on that. So talk to me about what you had in place. First of all, everybody has to take it seriously.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And
so
that's
when
a
you
problem.
talk with teachers and get them on board, what was that preliminary conversation like?
Well, it was at first. The first is like, well, this is another training session. Yeah. But the attitude of the teachers was great because not only they were saying this is not a training session, but they were receptive for the information. Yeah. This is what we do. And we actually did a role playing. And there was, you know, giggles and jokes and laughter at that, which was great. Yeah. Until the scenario actually played out yesterday, which was a total different, no giggles and no jokes, I'm sorry. Okay, but addressing what you're saying, Marlene, is that there has to be a plan. It's either you, fail a plan or plan to fail. One or the other going to happen. Mm-hmm. So when was the last time any of the schools in the immediate area did a fire drill? That's a question mark. When was the last time that the school in the immediate area did an intruder drill?
Do they have an intruder drill?
Well, that is exactly why I'm here. Okay,
so talk to me about what you put in place for Nazarene. So the idea is someone goes onto the compound.
Someone goes onto the compound, somebody's going to see him.
Okay.
So once you see the individual, in this case, hopefully it's a warden in this case, because many schools have wardens.
Yes.
So they're like the eyes. So if they see the individual who is an intruder, then there has to be a system in place to where that information, observation, have to get back to a base. And from the base, that information has to be disseminated out to the body.
Okay.
To the entire school area.
So that's one of the key things. Does the warden have access to talking to the people who perhaps have access to the intercom system?
Well, I'll share with you. If you go to many of the schools around here, if you look at a basic walkie-talkie for communication, 0. Nazarene, again, the principal there, she instituted a walkie-talkie system for communication. And that was what happened in that scenario yesterday, was that communication was done through the walkie-talkie system and the protocol that subsequently occurred. Yeah. So if you look at what's in place right now, there's not a communication system that is in place. Yeah. And other than that, you see the individual, so now you're going to go ahead and run and announce, or you're going to, or use the creole, are you going to bawl out and make people know that he or she is there?
And cause panic.
That's the first thing that you're going to do. You talk about maybe a school of 500 kids, 600 kids. Can you imagine the stampede and everything that will go and happen at that instant? Yeah. I mean, it just takes a quick second for everything to break loose.
The first step was establishing a communication between your frontline defenders, the people who get the first.
You observe
sight.
it. Yeah. You observe it. You get the information. Now you have to get that information out.
Let me take a step back here, because we're very trusting people.
That's correct.
And so I may see someone around, and if I'm a warden, maybe it's a parent coming to see the principal, maybe somebody else already cleared them to come in. How do you teach them about just being absolutely safe about reporting who they see, rather than trusting that perhaps the people have a good, the person has a good intention?
That comes through training.
Yeah.
Because within the training section, we call it body language or being able to read, an individual. And that comes through training. Okay. So subsequently, you see the individual, in this case, who does not belong there, and then you see that he or she doesn't belong there, and the threat. Remember, we're talking about an intruder, i.e. criminal intent.
Yes.
Once it's detected that the individual is an intruder, then the alarm has to be sound.
All right.
So you have to be able to make that distinguish whether it's a nice parent or an intruder.
So what was the protocol that you put in place? What was the response to an intruder on the compound?
Intruder on the compound, in this case, it was designated that the individual is an intruder. Once that's designated, the observation is made, then the alarm is sound. Then the code is locked down. That information has to be transmitted to all the classrooms. And that's where I say that there's deficiencies within the school system here. Yeah. Because many schools don't have intercom system. So that has to be broadcast all the way out to the school that is in Timbuktu, with the students, with the teacher who's teaching math, and have no idea that there's an intruder on their campus.
So if there is no intercom system, which you're right, not all schools have, is there perhaps a warning system with bells?
Bingo. There should be some form, if the principal have to go out there with her little,
they wait for it at the end of the day.
Exactly. So something has to be in place, that a warning system has to be done, in this case, as you just said.
Yeah.
And again, that comes through protocol, putting together a evacuation, putting together a plan.
Yeah, yeah. And what we saw yesterday in your drill at Nazarene was that there was a lockdown. In other words, they locked themselves into the classroom.
Lockdown, that's the code. Lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. And then the students, the teachers, everybody know what to do. First thing, secure the door.
Yeah.
Next thing, secure the window. Once the doors are secured, the windows are secured, then the students, what would you do?
You have to get on the floor under your desk, I would imagine.
You got to hide out.
I would imagine, yeah.
In this case, you got to hide out. But let's look at this. This is a controlled situation. Yeah. The individual does not pose, quote, a threat.
Yeah.
Not an armed gunman. So yes, you're going to go ahead and get down on the floor. You're going to go ahead and hide out in a sense. You're going to remain in that classroom. Yeah. So the individual will not have access into the classroom. Yeah. That's phase one. Once you secure everything, then the school has to inform that it's a drill.
Yeah, you got to call the police, I'd imagine. Get somebody to
without a doubt, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Because law enforcement have to be involved.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be we're just here doing this all by ourselves, but addressing what the school has to, at that moment, what the school have to do, because let's be real here. By the time you call law enforcement to get there, hypothetical situation, there's going to be some time.
Yeah. So, Shihan, how much do you involve the students in the plan? So clearly you have to articulate and work with teachers on what they need to do. What's the involvement of the students? Involvement
of the student is as I stood in the auditorium and informed the students what they must do. Mm-hmm. The teachers are responsible. We're going to let the teachers be leaders.
Yeah.
The teachers are responsible to give instruction to their student in their classroom. Yeah. Intruder alarm sounds off. The teacher is a leader at that time, and the teacher said, close the door, close the gate, close the windows, and, whatever they have to do, the leader take charge.
So they designate people in their classes to have certain responsibilities?
They can. Yeah. They can designate, but again, we do not want to leave the teacher role out because their role are critical. Yeah. They're in that classroom, but the teacher know that once you hear that intruder alarm sounds, they're telling their student what to do.
Yeah. Now, Shihan, I can't help but feel a bit anxious at this conversation, given the context of what we've seen with school shootings.
Yes.
And my concern is, how do you not just make children more nervous about the threats that are taking place? Are we being extreme here?
Marlene, if we're being extreme, I want you or anyone, Google Columbine. and what occurred there. And go on the internet and Google recent school shooting. This is real. Okay?
We've been seeing it in Belize.
But we always say, America that. I'm being real here. A lot of time what happened there in the United States eventually trickled back to this country. And I am sorry, everybody in this country is not trustworthy. Mens rea, guilty mind. Everybody in this country is not the angel. There's some, I'm gonna go off there's some weird folks out there who want to do harm to people. And when you send your child to school in the morning, the last thing that you want to see is your child in a body bag. And what I'm saying is, if we don't prevent, I'm not going out here and preaching, you know, get scared and lock your child up in the, no, I'm not doing that. I'm being real here of a potential situation that can happen in this country. Knock on wood, it has not happened yet. But I'm not going to be a prophet here and say it's going to happen. Yeah. Let's be real.
Yeah.
If hurricane season comes our way, what do we do in hurricane season? We prepare for it. NEMO is here and give us all the information. The government informs us. Subsequently, my question is, why do we not put the safety and prepare for our children?
Yeah, no, that's a valid point. And what do you see yourself doing from this point forward? I mean, other schools are watching, perhaps other parents are watching and saying, I wonder if my child's school has a preparedness plan like this. Are you going to be working with other schools? I mean, what's your suggestion?
It's twofold. I want parents to hold the educational system responsible. And you say, what am I hold me responsible for? Why should the educational system be held responsible? Because as educators, which I am, you have responsibility for those under your care and under your charge. Yeah. So if you fail to have a system in place, I'm not saying just a system in place, I'm saying an effective system in place. And you do not hold people to the fire of even doing a drill about what is on paper. It's good to put it on paper, but you do not initiate and practice it and put it into play and then assess how you could make it better. Yeah. Then what happened when it's for real? Yeah. So now we go to the lawyers. I'm going to go legally here. So now the school failed in the part of providing safety to my child. And my child is dead. I now have to go out and pay for my child's funeral. I'm going on the deep end. The parent should seek legal advice about how that school failed that my child end up in a body bag.
I think that's one.
I'm going on one perspective.
I hear what you're saying, but I think that also when you look at, I don't want to move away responsibility from the criminals themselves.
Oh, negative.
From the person who runs onto a school compound to escape the police with a gun in their hand, understanding the threat that they put on the children, innocent children in a school. But if I could just ask, because I think I see what you're doing with the high schools, and I'm just thinking, what about primary schools? What about babies? How do you work with a 7-year-old to have them understand that, yes, we got to prepare for bad men coming onto the compound, or bad women, if that's the case. And
bad women too.
And also, yeah, I mean, this is, it's gender equality in all aspects.
That's correct.
But how do you prepare 7-year-olds or 6-year-olds and not, having them lose sleep or becoming too scared to run about with their everyday life? What's your suggestion?
Not suggestion. What is a protocol in place to train them so that when that situation becomes real, then it is dealt with and they come through that trauma. Yeah. That's why I hear in the background, the traumatic experience. Yeah. Studies is still continuing on what happened in Columbine. That students are still traumatically affected from that. You take a 7 years old or a younger child, and the child has to go through this drill, to go through this protocol. Yeah. It's great that they go through it, because when they go through it on a regular basis,
they know what to do.
They know what to do. So now it's for real, Marlene.
Yeah.
It's like.
Yeah. So what was the feedback you got from the students and teachers after yesterday's drill?
That's a great question. The teachers thought it was real. No one knew that this simulation was going to occur.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought you were preparing for the drill.
Negative.
Oh, so you trained them for an intruder situation and then suddenly had an alarm go off that there's an intruder.
Thank you.
Wow.
That is part of the training package I'm putting together.
Yeah.
Because if you, with students, if you say, hey, we're going to have this training and this is, they already, so it's like, oh, this is not real.
Yeah.
So no one knew that this was going to happen other than my coordination with Dr. Segura,
With the principal. Yeah.
The feedback was the teachers was not aware. I'm here to take a, we'll chuckle.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't be chuckling, but they thought it was real, a real life scenario.
Yeah.
And subsequently, you had teachers that had a little traumatic experience about it.
Did everyone effectively execute their plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Some teachers felt that they were scared.
Yeah.
They were scared because they saw a criminal on their campus, they saw law enforcement on their campus, and subsequently they were scared.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring this training as close to reality in one scenario. As you said, there's many that's out there, but one scenario where the bad guy was apprehended by law enforcement, and everybody that day, the teachers, everybody that day went home safely. The counselor was there. She went to the various class and make sure that the children, everybody's fine, and so the counseling came in and did her part.
Yeah.
But that day, knock on wood, as close to real scenario simulation came true, and it was graded at a grade 9.
Yeah.
Now, what if this scenario, and I said, what if it to death? What if this scenario was at an elementary school with a 7-year-old?
Clearly, in terms of your risk assessment, you're looking ahead as to all possibilities as to what can happen. And we really, I think out of the sheer love that we have for our children, we don't want to think that.
That's correct.
But correct. It is most important that they are prepared for any eventuality. Shihan, what type of assistance are you offering if a school sees this and says, you know what? There's shootings in my area where my school is, people are running from the police in my area. I want to get my kids prepared as to what to do. Or perhaps I just want to be on the safer side of having the school population prepared. Can they contact you? Can you help other schools?
I am here, by the grace of God. I have the knowledge. I'm retired law enforcement, so I know the law enforcement side of it. I'm a tactical instructor. And at the same time, I have a master's degree in education. So I have all the check boxes that to put together to make this legitimate. I'm a martial art instructor over close to 50 years. So that under my belt, I can sit here and say, yes, I am qualified to put this together and have put it together. And that being said, I am available. And I pray and hope that as a community, view this interview between me and you, Marlene, that they will take it safe if they have children in school. And then not only view it, hold accountability, hold people accountable. That's what we don't do. Hold people accountable. They can contact me and I will provide the information and coordinate it so subsequently we can get this training module out. If it's mean the entire country, I'm game. If it means every school, I'm game. I have no issues as long as God gives me the time, and so far He has.
All right. Well, Shihan, I think it definitely is a great initiative to think ahead in terms of the training, in terms of the protection of our children.
Yes.
Especially as the threats that they're exposed to changes with time.
That's correct.
Thank you for coming in and telling us about this. And I do hope that other schools reach out and find out how they can keep the children of our country safe as well.
Thank you, Marlene.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take our final break now. And when we come back, we'll have our wrap-up, so stay tuned.